Home, 30 minutes from London and over the borders of Kent. Bustle or quiet. This is northwest Kent, as the local farmer knows it. Calmer than the town, a world of fields and countryside. But for others, there is a different Kent, one of oil and smoke and industry, all under the same patch of sky, the symbols of a changing district. These are the environments and many faces of the Garden of England. The town has reached out to the country. New houses and rich meadows blend with the strong lines of modern industry. But the fertility and beauty of nature still remain. The Thames, with its cargo vessels and grey wharfs, borders the north edge of this diverse area. For some, this is a background to life, a livelihood and social pattern. Other backgrounds trace other lives, big houses and old houses, village stores, clean shopping centres and new industrial development. Designs for living and each a world of its own. So this is one way of life, remote from the town and connected by just a worn cart track. For the farmer, wind and sun are the spur. But for others, the world is no wider. Each treads his own path against the same background. People of different lives are unknown and unnoticed. "30 minutes from London and over the borders of Kent." In perspective, this pattern of northwest Kent is mirrored by its 9 district newspapers: the Beckenham Journal, Bromley Times, farther north, the Eltham Times, farther south, Orpington Times. In Sidcup, the main office of the whole Kentish Times series, the observers of Bexleyheath and Erith, in picturesque Chislehurst and at industrial Dartford. 9 papers, 1 family. Links between the contrasts and the people. Links between the people. Hurry along to buy, shop or look. Go about your business until something diverts your attention. Then you may pause and wonder. It passes on, a white streak of someone else's world. In its wake, a flicker of understanding grows and dies away again, and the shoppers wander on. The ambulance is now remote, but through the local newspaper, through a local reporter, its story will live. With the universal language of the journalist will come understanding. The reporter must blend into all worlds. From the everyday background of crowded shoppers, the accident leads to hospital, and a contrast that must be no less familiar. Now it is the atmosphere of long corridors, ether and silent trolleys that confronts the reporter. A world just around the corner that you may never see or enter. An accident story, a feature on a scout's fate, or the business of local council meetings, all are compatible to the reporter. The reporter's room of a Kentish Times paper is the starting point for most stories. First leads come by letter and personal caller, or over the telephone. A council worker has given £50 to a church restoration fund. No more is known. The search for a story begins. Who is the council worker? How will his gift be used? What restoration work is being done? The story unfolds as the reporter is shown around. Sir Thomas Walsingham, patron of Marlow, is buried here, and Viscount Sidney, after whom a great city is named. Data for the reporter is plentiful, and rector and parishioners alike have a rightful pride in this church. A new window in the west nave shows part of the work already done. The original window, damaged during the war, has been completely replaced. The structure of a story is laid, and a pleasant interview draws to a close. Later, over the chatter of the reporter's typewriter, a picture of the church will emerge, with a memory of that amiable rector. This is one reporter's assignment, now almost a personal challenge of understanding and interpretation. But there are others, widely different. An Erith gymkhana with a ringside seat. Interviewing at a Beckenham Old Folks Club. Other reporters and other events. A boys' club at Nottingham, or an important archaeological find at Lullingstone to be reported and photographed. Daily contrast for every journalist at every Kentish Times paper. One Kentish Times paper, one reporter, and one story. A church restoration fund and £50 from a council worker. Memories and feelings combine with the facts in this man's story so that thousands will learn. But other facts may be vital before the story nears completion. Details about the church which tie up with the past. Information in the editorial reference cards leads on to old stories in early issues of the Kentish Times. Copies going back even 70 years or more, and bound in leather volumes. Some details about the council worker are not yet completely known, but these can be added at a later stage. Now the typewritten story must start its journey through the machinery of a newspaper, going first to the chief sub-editor. Here, in the sub's room, the story is given headings, assessed for importance and adjusted in length if necessary. The sub-editor responsible for this must have a light touch and leave the story unspoiled. As copy arrives, sheets showing the layout of each page in the paper are also prepared. Here, the area for the church story is sketched on a page already marked up for advertisements. Headings for the story are positioned, and the space for a photograph of the council worker is allocated. Other Kentish Times papers work likewise with layouts for their own stories. Now ready for typesetting, the council worker's story is sent by vacuum tube straight down to the office of the works manager. A piece of paper inspired by one man's deed and a sequence of mechanical activity is triggered off in the busy works. The copy already bears instructions as to typefaces to be used. Hand to the battery of linotype machines where words become solid images of metal type. Each linotype machine combines the functions of a typewriter and small foundry. Pressing a character on the keyboard brings into position a matrix, or mould, of the chosen letter. By operating a lever, when a complete line has been set up, molten metal is injected into the matrices so that a relief casting is made. The council worker's story takes on a new form. Another man becomes involved, and the rhythm of a newspaper grows. Typesetting continues at a steady tempo. But as each story is set, the cast metal is brought to a proofing press to yield its first printed copy. Inked with a roller, the council worker's story is transformed to readable words again. A check for errors can now be made by proofreaders. Working in pairs, the readers mark any errors on the proof and indicate corrections needed in the original type. These are the words of the reporter, the words about the church. But over the counter come other words, the contrasting words of the advertiser, TV sets, all mod con, and good runners. And to the advertisement manager come the words and well-designed layout of the display advertisement. Through Kentish Times papers, local and national advertisers reach a widespread public. Display setting for this is done in the Ludlow room, working direct from the advertiser's layout. Mattresses for the various display typefaces are arranged in section trays. From these, the wording of the advertisement is built up by hand. Locked together, the mattresses are then taken to the Ludlow machine, where a relief casting of the type is made. After this has been done, the mattresses are returned to the tray, ready for further use. The separate words and lines cast from these mattresses are meanwhile spaced out in accordance with the layout. A proof of the finished advertisement can now be taken. This is the advertisement as it will appear in the Kentish Times. Like the council worker story, it will spread out to a diverse people, to shoppers and window gazers from many districts and walks of life, to the busy towns and the quiet, to the contrasts of northwest Kent. A link in its own right. One of these houses is the home of the council worker. The van is from the local Kentish Times paper. A staff photographer, accompanied by the reporter who wrote the story, has come to get a picture of the man who saved £50 for his old church. The house is much like others in the street, small, quiet and clean. But its silent visitors and the parked van add a touch of singularity. Brief farewells, and the visit is over. Another stage in the story of the council worker and the church. 3 pictures have been taken. Now the immediate responsibility of the photographer is to get them back and get them processed. The street will be deserted again now, and the curtains closed. But the story moves on until it can reach out to 1,000 streets and 100,000 homes. Inside the Kentish Times office, a busy photographic department is ready to take its own specialized part. When the photographic gear has been unloaded, the exposed plates are taken to the darkroom for processing. This is a job the photographer does himself, following through his knowledge of the original subject. Enlargements of the processed negatives are produced in the printing room. From these, only one will be selected. This final choice is made by the chief sub. The chosen photograph can now be marked up on the back to show the block size that is required. Half-tone blocks are prepared in the engraving department, where the conventional method is to rephotograph the print through a fine screen inside the camera. The resulting negative has an image broken into a fine pattern of dots, which vary in size according to the picture tones. This is photographically printed onto a metal plate. On exposure, the image is reproduced on the plate as a protective coating. Immersion in an acid bath then etches the pattern into the metal. The complete process is lengthy, and most Kentish Times blocks are now made by speedy electronic means. The apparatus for this is virtually automatic and produces an engraved plate in less than 1/10 of the usual time. The size of the half-tone plate is the same as the original print. Photographs approved by the Chief Sub are therefore reprinted to the required block size before coming to the engraving department, and a smaller photograph of the council worker is now used to prepare a plate. When the machine has been loaded and started, a cutting stylus begins to engrave the metal plate in diagonal sweeps. Simultaneously, a photoelectric device scans the photograph and controls the cutting action. Engraved across its whole surface, the plate yields a complete picture of the council worker, preserved in metal for the front page. This is one man's picture, but it could be anyone's. The art and craft of the newspaper is tied to people and their activities in all walks of life. Constantly, they are the potential sources of news, and in the end, readers of it. Each picture has a story of its own. Assortments of life with backgrounds of happiness or drama, and sometimes just the serious business of pleasure. Motoring, like many other interests, has its own column in the Kentish Times and its own staff motoring correspondents. For him and his readers, the joys of life can be found under the bonnet of any new car. But for the more elegant interests of women readers, the oily secrets of cars may not appeal, and the Woman's Page editress explores other secrets. Theatrical tastes are followed by the drama critic, and the more sober business of local magistrates' courts is reported in all Kentish Times papers. Weekly features of many kinds. Sport has its own editor, and reports on golf, bowls, athletics, and many more arrive daily. Bigger events are attended for more detailed coverage, and support runs high when local clubs of amateur fame meet. Cricket contrasts, and the traditional atmosphere of many grounds in Kent offer a pleasant assignment for the sports editor himself. Cricket, football, more stories, more proofs, more staff. And the cycle nears completion in the reviser's room. Here, the stories checked by readers receive a final inspection after the type has been corrected and reproofed. Now the elements of a newspaper begin to converge as the heavy metal of stories, pictures, and advertisements is arranged into complete pages. With the original layout as a guide, the text and picture of the council worker's story are fitted together with other items to make up the front page as planned. Known as the stone bench, this flat working surface has a chase, or frame, placed on top to keep the metal within page area. In this, the front page grows as the council worker's story completes the pattern. Only the column rules remain to be positioned. These will print as separating lines between each column of text and are made to preset lengths on the L-rod strip casting machine. The front page is complete and ready for proofing. This is done by inking up the raised metal and using a hand-proofing press to take an impression of the whole page. The assembly work of the stone hand can then be easily checked against the original layout sheet. Right across, and a rough proof of the front page emerges. Now the story of the church and the picture of the donor appear as a combined news item, ready for the chief sub to examine. Small queries may still arise, but these are settled on the spot. The made-up page could be used now for simple flatbed printing. But all Kentish Times papers are printed by faster rotary press, for which a semicircular casting of the whole page is needed. This will be made in the foundry. But first, a papier-mâché mould of the front page is prepared in a powerful press. The impressed sheet, called a flong, is made by high-pressure contact with the metal type. Every detail will reproduce in the papier-mâché so that a perfect casting can be taken from it later. A pressure of 2,000 pounds per square inch is applied under heat. After a time, the chase is then withdrawn and the steaming flong peeled off. The papier-mâché sheet is next thoroughly dried by heat. This is necessary so that every trace of moisture is removed before the flong is used for plate casting. Now the flong can be fitted inside the casting box. This is shaped so that the plate it produces will exactly fit the cylinders of the rotary press. Molten metal is then injected into the box, filling every hollow detail in the flong. When the molten metal has cooled, the casting box is opened and the flong removed. The flat type of the front page has now been transformed into a curved metal plate. By sliding the plate into another part of the machine, unwanted metal outside the page area is automatically trimmed off. Later, this will be remelted for further use. Now only the edges of the casting require cleaning up, and the front page will be ready for the rotary press. This is the culmination of effort, crystallized in a metal plate. Stories from all corners of Kent have come together through a common medium. The council worker, the excavations, the accident, and many more are now one and the same, ready to fan out again as printed news. "5 miles in a roll, this is the raw material that will carry the council worker's story to people's doormats, mantel shelves, and raincoat pockets. Newsagents will scribble door numbers on its edges. Men will carry it tightly rolled. This will be the local paper." The rotary press is silent now, waiting for the plates of each page to be loaded. Clean newsprint is fed through in readiness. The front page casting is fitted to its cylinder. Other pages follow on other cylinders. Final checks are made, rollers are adjusted, and the paper is ready to run. This is news, printed news. This is the face that thousands will see, and this is the story for all to read. The job of distribution gets underway as a chain of men keeps the flow constantly moving. Printed labels for every bundle come from the circulation department, where the changing requirements of newsagents, wholesalers, and subscribers are all recorded. Bundles containing the required number of copies for each newsagent are packed. According to districts, parcels are loaded into waiting vans, ready for delivery. The divergence of news begins, and the rhythm of distribution grows to a peak of activity. The destinations of these vans are newsagents all over northwest Kent. Some may go even further, south to remoter parts of Kent, or north to wholesalers in London. Now the contrasts of an area come to life again as each van follows its own route. The news of some worlds spreads out to all worlds, and in the morning different people will read the same newspaper. The routine continues and repeats itself. More bundles are delivered and the vans empty. In the end, nearly 100,000 newspapers will have been distributed. One more van departs with a final load, and the work of another edition is through. News that reporters collected and condensed has fanned out again, a cycle completed. Now the offices are empty, the presses are silent, and the stories have gone. This is the end of the line. The story of the council worker has reached into the worlds of others. Contrasts have no barriers to news, and the words of the reporter read the same to all people. This is the end of the line, and now a part of the daily routine. Under the arm goes a familiar patch of print to read again on the train. Behind the details of brief headlines, the story of another man will soon be known. The newspaper will claim attention where reality has failed. This is the end of the line, a reader of the paper. This is the end of the line, and the creation of a link.
We very much miss over the years the decline in the trade from the arsenal, which is in the background. We really do need some more trade to be generated into Woolwich. We would very much like there to be some retail outlets across the other side of the gate, so that we could link up across from the market to give it more depth and more interest for people and worthwhile coming to Woolwich for.
The arsenal, though associated with a great history over several hundred years, is not outdated, though people tend to think of it in terms of cannonball and brass cannon.